Okay, we are going to start our reading. So I had you guys open to chapter 14, but I always like to be able to start on the table of contents. Table of contents, as you guys can remember, is found at the beginning of the book. It tells us the chapters or what we can find in the book and the page number. So I'm going to find chapter 14. It's at the very bottom. I know that in chapter 14, I'm going to read about Jane Goodall, and I can find it on page 112. You are already there, but I am going to flip there now after my table of contents page. On these pages, we are going to be reading about Jane Goodall. Let's go ahead and everybody point to the title of this chapter. That way I know we're on the page and we're ready to go together. The title is Jane Goodall. Very good. In our reading, we're going to come across some of those vocabulary words. Everybody point to that first bold word that we come across. That first bold word was what? Now, you might need to read through it because this is a word that, even though it's a big word, you can sound it out. Primatologist. Primatologist. So that primatologist is someone who's studying primates, and there are a variety of different primates. Today, we are going to keep our hands off the things around us because we do not need the things around you. And I'm going to have you start to begin reading this page to yourself, page 112 and 113. And I want you to read to find out what does it mean to study a chimpanzee's behavior. So again, we know from our tribute video, that's what one of the things Jane Goodall does is she studies a chimpanzee's behavior. So what does that mean to study their behaviors? Okay, you're reading to find out. After reading those pages, what does it mean to study a chimpanzee's behavior? Griffin.
Study what it does.
That's exactly right. If you're studying something's behavior, you're studying what it does. You're studying how it acts. So learning a little bit about Jane Goodall, where did she study at? Well, I should put it this way. Where did she go to study chimpanzees? Charlie.
Cambridge.
That's one of the places she went. And she learned about chimpanzees there. She went to Cambridge University in England, but she couldn't observe chimpanzees there. So where else did she go? Claire. She went to Africa, and she studied in Africa for a year. Then she went to Cambridge, and guess what? She goes back to Africa again. Let's go ahead and turn the page. What do we see on page 115? Brock, what do we see on page 115? We see a chimpanzee. How do you know that's a chimpanzee? Brock? What does our caption say? Fabulous. So we're not just looking at it and guessing. We're using what we see on that page, that caption, to help us figure out that that is, in fact, a chimpanzee. And we know chimpanzees are members of the primate group. So this is, I know I've already started reading this page a little bit. That is how I know that Jane Goodall goes back to Africa again. I'm going to read this page to you, but I want you to be following along. So what does that look like? Show me what it looks like to follow along. Ooh, this whole row, almost this whole row has it. Your eyes are in the book. You're following along. You're not looking at me. That's not following along. And I want you to think, what unusual discoveries about chimps did Jane Goodall make during her years in Africa? So what maybe more unusual discoveries did she make? After finishing school, Goodall returned to Africa and spent the next 45 years studying chimpanzees in the wild. Her discovery during those years completely changed the way that people think about primates. Before Goodall's work, people thought chimpanzees were herbivores, which means they thought they ate what, guys? Plants. Fabulous. She discovered that they eat meat too. So if they eat plants and meat, what are they?
Omnivores.
Fabulous. More importantly, Goodall discovered that chimps were quite intelligent. Follow along. She observed them making and using tools. Before that, people thought that humans were the only animals that made and used tools. When you hear the word tool, you may think of a hammer, saw, or shovel. Chimps don't use those kinds of tools. A tool is something used to help make a job easier. Tools can be very simple. A rock becomes a tool if you pick it up and use it to crack open a walnut. Why are you not following along? So when they say tools, are they creating saws and sawing down trees?
No.
No, but what do they mean when they refer to tools? Grayson. Yeah, but they're taking it. When they say a tool is something that can be used to make a job easier. So how many of you have ever seen a walnut? There's one that grows in the park. There's a walnut tree, and they're hard to crack open. I can't do it with my hands, most definitely not. We take them and we throw them at the ground. That works. But the chimps could use a rock, and they're hitting it. So that lets us know that it's being used as a tool. You're not writing anything right now, sweetie. Your pencils are down. We were very clear about that. So what unusual discovery did she find out about chimps when she was studying them in the wild? I have the same volunteers today, but I just read this to us. What unusual discoveries did she find? Zoe?
She discovered that chimps they use tools.
They use tools. Isn't that kind of cool? So before that, people thought that who used them? Humans, and that was it. But in fact, Jane Goodall discovered that chimps use them as well. Do you think other primates might use them too?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Third graders, go ahead and turn the page. Who do we see on this page? Oh, thank you, Zena, for having that hand up. How do you know that this is a chimpanzee, Zena, and not a gorilla or a monkey?
Because at the bottom of the picture, you see that there's a chimpanzee. You them as a tool.
So we see from the caption, thank you, Zena, that this is a chimpanzee. And what is he doing? What is he doing, Charlie?
He's using a plant stem as a tool.
Fabulous. You can't see it on mine, but you can see it on yours. He's using that plant stem as a tool. I want you to read this page to yourself to answer the question, what other tools do chimps use? So we know they might use a rock to crack open a walnut. What other what other tools do they use? And what might they use it for? Go ahead and read to find out, please. After our reading, what are some other things chimps use as tools? Turn and share with your partner first, and then I'll call on some people. 3, 2, 1. What else did they use, Kaylin? They used grass. And how did they use that grass? What did they do with it? Alexa, what did they do with it? What did they use the grass for? If we look back up in the first paragraph, it says they use blades of grass and sticks as tools. So what did they use them for? She's answering for me. Your hands can be down. They didn't just eat the grass. What did they do with the grass? It was a tool. What did they do with it, Zoe?
They use the grass. They use grass. Chimps like to eat and like to try to find insects.
Ryder, go wash your hands.
They find insects.
Yeah, they would take it and they would stick the grass in a hole. What would climb on the grass? Termites, which is a type of an insect, and then they'd eat it. Isn't that pretty smart?
Yeah.
So if these tiny little insects are in a hole, is a chimp going to be able to get to it? No. And so they had to use a tool to get it. Jane Goodall learned that they're really intelligent, but she also learned they show emotions. What are some emotions that she learned they express that humans express as well? Kyler.
Mad.
Let's find it in our text. Everybody find it in our text and point to where it shows the emotions, because that is one of them, but there is more. Find it in our text. Where does it show us the emotions?
Second paragraph.
It is the second paragraph. Put your finger on it when you find it. Let's read this sentence together. They can feel happy, sad, and mad. Chimps can also be mean. So they share those emotions that humans have too. Now, I don't need us all to say this out loud, but you can share it with a partner. What are some examples of chimps being mean that you read about today? 3, 2, 1. Now I heard it. They were killing monkeys, right? No, not each other, because are chimpanzees monkeys? No, they're primates. Different. It's different. We can't call them the same. That would be like calling Griffin a monkey. Griffin's a primate. Griffin is a primate, but he is not a monkey. See the difference there? They'd kill monkeys because they were hungry?
No.
Just because they didn't want them there. That's not nice. I mean, killing an animal for food, that's part of nature, right? But you need to stop with the shouting out today. But they weren't. They were just killing it to be mean. Let's go ahead and turn the next page. Who do we see on our final reading of this chapter? Chloe, who is this?
Jane Goodall.
How do you know that this is Jane Goodall?
Right under the picture, there's a caption.
And what does it say?
Jane Goodall continues to work as an animal rights activist.
Jane, yes, exactly. So our caption lets us know that this is Jane Goodall and that she still works as an animal rights activist. I'm going to read it to you. And as I read, I want you to think, as an activist, what did Jane Goodall work to change? So we know activists are working to change something. As an activist, what did she work to change? Please follow along in your text, guys. Goodall is more than a scientist. She's also an activist. An activist is someone who works hard to solve a problem and change something in the world. Goodall works as an animal rights activist to protect chimpanzees and their habitats. She tells others about human damage to habitats such as hunting, pollution, and works to stop these problems. She loves working with young people and teaching them how to protect animals. Kaylin, you need to focus on your book now. She has written many books and has been the subject of books and movies. She has won many awards for her work in protecting chimpanzees. As of 2015, which was 5 years ago, she was 81 years old and still working to spread the message that animals need to be protected. So we learned earlier she's 86, right? So what did Jane Goodall work to change? What was her, as an activist, what was her goal? Grayson.
To change animal rights and to protect chimpanzees and their habitat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So again, that text evidence piece, right? We can find it right in there. She works as an animal rights activist to protect chimpanzees and their habitats. That is what she's working to do as an animal rights activist. Perfect. That is the end of our reading, but we do have an activity to go with our reading today, okay? We have an activity.